Lamis Andoni is a journalist and analyst and the editor-in-chief of The New Arab. She joins me now from Doha. Lamis, good to speak with you. A lot has been said about how important Shireen Abu Akleh's work was. And then today you see this chaos at her funeral when Israeli police go storming in with batons. What do you make of what happened today?
I think the whole funeral has been a real challenge to the Israeli army and in Israel, because Shireen Abu Akleh represents, well, I don't know how many things she represents, because she was really a reporter who was trying to tell the story of Palestinians, the daily story of Palestinians in under the occupation. She was documenting that, and that's she dedicated her life for that. So. What the Israelis are seeing is a real challenge to their power, because just the killing of a journalist has triggered so much grief and anger. And anger, because the anger has already been there. They killed the person who was telling people stories. And that was a big blow to the Palestinians. It's you know, there's an outpour. I can't explain to you what kind of an outpour of grief, not just inside Palestine, outside Palestine. We are all grieving, because it's not just that the young people, a young women grew up seeing her and saw her as a role model. It's because here is a woman who just wanted to tell stories. But she wasn't aware maybe how important, how dangerous is telling the story of Palestinians is to the world when there is an occupation, when there is a colonial regime who's trying to dispossess the Palestinians, kill their identity, and deny their existence. In this case, telling the story itself is resistance, even if it's done professionally as a journalist. So they saw her as a sister, they saw her and they saw every and each Palestinian journalist as a threat. A threat, Lamis, because... Yeah.
Can I ask you, you're quite right, the anger, the outpouring of anger and disbelief at what happened to Shireen Abu Akleh is palpable. You can feel that coming from all quarters. Do you think that anger will be enough to put pressure on the Israelis to identify a possible shooter, because they're now saying that it is possible that the bullet did come from an Israeli soldier? Do you think that the person who shot Shireen will ever be identified?
This is really shameless by the Israelis. I mean, even the Israeli human rights organization Salem showed that the snipers, Shireen was not caught in a crossfire. She was away from it. And it was a sniper who killed her, because even the place where she was shot is between the helmet and her vest. That was snipers doing. So even if they identify him and it is an Israeli soldier, so what? The Israeli state is at fault. It's not just about one individual. It's 20 journalists have been killed by Israel, Palestinian journalists, since 2000, since the year 2000. This is not the first, and it will not be the last if this continues. Israel is acting for impunity. She doesn't respect journalists or any Palestinian, old or young. So it's not a matter of just, I think what the US, and I bet you what the US and Israel are doing, are trying to make it an accident. She was killed by mistake. It was just a soldier's miscalculation, or he acted on his own. But it doesn't matter if he had orders or not. Palestinians have been dehumanized for a long time. So a soldier who's going there to rein them in, to control them, to control their wives, he doesn't see them as full human beings. They see them to people to have to be subjugated. When you see something, someone.
The situation at the moment, is that the US is saying that it wants an investigation. The UN is saying this is a possible war crime. Do you think at any level the death of Shireen Abu Akleh will make things safer for Palestinian journalists going forward, because Israel has got all this scrutiny on it, or do you not think it will make a difference?
It could make a difference, but I don't trust the US. We don't trust the US reaction. The US will try to exonerate Israel from its responsibility as a state and put it on one soldier. And also the US is trying to, I think they're trying to spin the story as to say Israel accepts responsibility, but it was by mistake or one soldier. What the UN has to do is to pursue its talk about war crimes, because all of the killing of journalists, of Palestinian journalists in the past went unpunished. And the Palestinian authorities should press ahead and go to The Hague, to the International Criminal Court. There's no other place. There's no other place to go, despite all of the US pressure to dissuade the authority and the Palestinians not to do it. So yes, it's not just the Palestinian journalists. Palestinian journalists should be protected while doing their job. And she was wearing her vest, and it was clear that she was a journalist. And her producer was shot as well, remember that. I'm glad he moved a little bit, or else he would have been killed. You saw the video. Her colleague from another agency couldn't even raise her head. She was trying to help Shireen, she couldn't raise her head. They were targeted. So it is, we have heard talk about war crimes before. Israel has never been tried for war crimes. It has been committing war crimes since 1937, since even before its establishment, and we haven't seen anything. But the world is changing, because Palestinians are not only speaking out, there are many people who are speaking out, from even Hollywood, even prominent personalities, but we need more people to speak out across the globe. We need more journalists to do the research. Yeah, it's not enough for Palestinians are eloquent. They don't have no problem with how many eloquent Palestinians are. And you know, one old lady gave her testimony about Shireen. She simply said, when Shireen, 20 years ago, the Israelis the anniversary just passed of the invasion of Jenin, where she was killed, the same place she was killed. She said just simply, this lady, Shireen has always been there. She's always been with us. During the siege of Jenin and the invasion of Jenin, Shireen helped me. Look, for my sons. This is the best praise that a journalist on the ground could ever get in his life or her life. It's more important than a Pulitzer. It's more important than any prize in the world. This is what
Lamis, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed. Good to get your thoughts there, Lamis Andoni there.
Thank you. Thank you.